I'd like to welcome all of you out to the Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series. We are very fortunate to have a wonderful speaker who I have become acquainted with in the last couple of years. I'd like to introduce you to Pauline Ploquin. Did I do it? Nice, very nice. She is the Chief Relationships Officer and partner with Struck, a creative agency. Pauline has a remarkable background in communications, nearly 20 years in the creative industry, and has mastered the art of left brain, right brain interaction. And I wanted to mention something. When I first met Pauline, I had already had a meeting with Struck, and I went in, and she came in the second meeting, and it was obvious to me that this was a very creative person who was also very much in charge at that meeting. So she has figured out that right brain, left brain thing. As CRO, Pauline is focused on developing satisfying relationships for her agency, including current accounts, strategic partnerships, and attracting new clients. Previously, Pauline held the title of Chief Operating Officer. As COO, her focus was on creating strategic alignment for Struck. For the past few years, that has been involving Struck's offerings to deliver client-satisfying solutions. Pauline is responsible for introducing the organization's bi-yearly survey measuring client satisfaction, where Struck ranks, get this, 74%, well above the industry average of 28%. That's spectacular. Pauline came to Struck 12 years ago from the award-winning 2002 Olympic Winter Games creative team. I was actually doing some work on that too, so I understand how broad that was. She started her career in publishing in Los Angeles. She holds a master's degree in political science from La Sorbonne. Did I pronounce that right? Thank you. In Paris, a degree in communications from UCLA, and currently sits on the International Board of Directors for the Digital Society. She has been a keynote speaker at TEDx in Salt Lake City and EvCom in London. Just a quick note about Struck. Struck is an insight-driven creative agency with offices in Salt Lake City, Portland, and Los Angeles. Struck believes in making brands greater than, through forward-thinking, breakthrough creativity, and interactive innovation. And I can tell you from a brand manager's perspective, you have to live that every day. The agency develops powerful brand solutions and experiences for clients such as Jack in the Box, Leonard Homes, Nickelodeon, Utah Office of Tourism, Glasses.com, and it's very interesting. My son actually wrote he's a copywriter, and he wrote a script for Glasses.com, so that was interesting. Creminelli, Deer Valley Resorts, and Sinclair Oil. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce Pauline.
Thank you, Patrick. Okay, test. Can you hear me? All right, good afternoon. No, good morning, still morning. So yes, Pauline Ploquin. Actually, I had a director of new business who, after 22 years in this country, finally figured out how to help Americans like yourselves remember how to pronounce my name. It's Pauline Ploquin, like yes, she can. Get it? Don't look at the way it's spelled, right? So today I want to talk to you a little bit about my path. I was actually kind of surprised when Patrick asked me to come and talk, because I feel like I have a very unusual path. And I want to thank you for kind of allowing me the opportunity to kind of go back in time and think about how I got to where I got, because it's not often we get to kind of reflect on that. So I try to put myself in your shoes, and I try to remember, when I was your age and where I was, and the kind of things that would have been helpful for me to hear at that time. But really, it's a very personal journey, and that's what this is going to be about. So the first thing I want to talk about actually is tell you a story, because the brain likes story. And it's almost lunchtime, I know you need some food, so let's get into a story. And this is not a professional story, this is actually a hiking story. I love to hike. When I moved to this country 24 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles. And I did not intend to stay in the country 24 years, so I thought I would really explore all of our national parks here in the American West. And I went to Kings Canyon with a friend of mine who was a German woman. And we prepared for a 3-day backpacking trip. We were 23 years old, and we thought we were adults. We thought we knew what we were doing, and we planned the trip. We had our topographical maps and our food. Great food always. When you're European, you always want to have great food. And we went ahead and started our journey. We had an end point. It was going to be a 3-day hike, and we were going to be camping 2 nights. First day went very well. We just started out chatting away and climbing, these 2 European women in Kings Canyon, and camped the first night where we were supposed to. And then on the second day, I always remember that moment, I was in the middle of a forest with my friend, and there we were chatting, and it started to rain. No big deal, we had our ponchos, we put our ponchos on, kept on talking, kept on walking. And all of a sudden I looked at my feet and I realized that the path had completely disappeared from under my feet. I could not see where I was going. I could not see anything anymore. So we did what every good hiker would do, which is backtrack and try to find the original trail. We could not find it. So first critical decision, we decided to get our topographical map out and carry on and go to the next point where we thought we were going to find a path. And there was no path. It was actually the edge of a ridge, and we were supposed to find a path going all the way down into the valley. No path. So we camped that night there, trying to decide what to do, because once you go down the valley, it's hard to get back out of it if you don't have an actual path. In the morning, we made the bold decision to actually go down. We did. We went down there, and there was a large river in the middle of it. Everything looked like where we were supposed to be. The path was supposed to be there, but we could not find it. This trail had disappeared from under our feet. It was a very interesting feeling. We started to talk about stories like Into the Wild. My friends started to talk about how we could die eating berries. I mean, we just started to kind of tell ourselves really strange stories. But we carried on and slept that night. So by now we were 2 days behind on our schedule. We started to ration our food. And it was a really, really strange feeling. Like, where is the path? Where is the path? So we, the third day, decided that we're going to give it one more try, and went to the next point where we thought we would find a path up this valley by the glacier. And lo and behold, we turned our head, and there was the path. Finally, 2 days later, we had reconnected with our trail. It was a great moment. We were they had actually started to send the rescue, search rescue teams, and they found us on the parking lot at Kings Canyon, and everyone was very happy to see us. But one of the reason why I tell this story is because this is a great lesson. Things that rarely go as planned. I'll talk about making a plan. I think it's important to make a plan, but it's important to know that things really rarely go as planned. The other big, very profound lesson for me from that piece is that I was always on the path, always on the path. I just spent all this time trying to figure out if I was on the path, but I was, and I knew that. So it's a kind of a question of confidence, like confidence that what you're doing, the detours you're doing, you're gonna have to chart your own path. You're gonna have to get your topographical map at some point and make decisions without knowing whether somebody else has taken that path, right? And I'll talk a little bit about why I believe this is really essential for you guys to kind of understand that you're gonna have to make your own decision and chart your own path, because a lot is changing in the work market today. So that's the first story. Second story is actually the story of my life. This is the story of my life. It looks like the world. I was born in Paris in 1970. My parents, at age 25, had me. And when I was 4 years old, they decided that they were going to work abroad. At the time, they got jobs, very good jobs, as professors in Algeria, which is in northern Africa. And they took me along with them. And the reason why I like to talk about this experience is that it was this first experience of experiencing completely different culture, different language, and really understanding that there's many ways to communicate in the world and many different ways to experience the world. And I think today that skill set really continues to work for me. It's an important skill set to have. We each have a different way of experiencing the world. We then moved to Senegal in West Africa, I went back to France to finish high school at age 14. I graduated from high school at age 16, and I knew nothing about what I wanted to do, nothing. I knew that I liked literature, I was very good in mathematics and science, and I think there was kind of that, what am I going to do with my life kind of a thing at 16. What do you know at 16, right? So I went to La Sorbonne, as Patrick mentioned, and I chose the most broadest, most generalist kind of degree I could find, which was at the time political science. And what I loved about political science is that essentially it was a non-choice. You know, I got to learn about history, I got to learn about philosophy and politics and economy and all kinds of skill set. But the most important skill set I learned getting a master's degree in political science actually was my ability to analyze, take any kind of question, and come up with a way to analyze the fact and come up with a point of view. And I think that is one of the most important skills that I have learned personally. Then, after 4 years and getting my master's degree, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. Did I want to be a diplomat? Did I want to be a journalist? Did I want to be a writer? I loved writing. I still didn't know. So a friend of mine was at UCLA, and I thought, you know what? I should probably be bilingual in English. It's kind of an important skill. You know, the communication skill was always in the back of my mind. So I went to UCLA. And I did a degree in journalism, which was kind of an interesting idea for those of you who have English as your second language, to try to write in your second language and try to report in your second language. I was fortunate enough to intern at the Los Angeles Times, and I was there right after the riots, the Rodney King riots. So it was kind of an interesting time for me. But I made it, and I think what I learned at UCLA is that you have to ask the right question. Those are the main things that I learned from my background in journalism, was ask questions. Like that is any questions, just don't make this about yourself. Make it about your subject and tell a good story. Those are the things that I learned. But that's where I got to, and then I realized I don't really love journalism. It's too fast. I don't get to analyze, I don't get to go deep. And then a friend of mine, you see a pattern here, called me, and they said, hey, we have a job in publishing, and it was an international publisher, and they needed bilingual researchers. So I got into publishing from UCLA. And what I learned there is pretty much to make the most out of any opportunities. Essentially, I learned every skill set there is to learn, every position I took with a vengeance because I loved it. You need a writer, I can become a writer. You need a photo editor, I love photo editing. Management, why is this chaotic? I need to organize this thing. And I kept on essentially rising through the ranks until I got a phone call one day from the Salt Lake Organizing Committee asking me if I wanted to join the team, which was kind of an incredible moment for me. And I said, yes, absolutely. And they moved me to good old Salt Lake City. I fell in love with Salt Lake, and Utah is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and I've been in the world. I've traveled, I've seen the world. I can tell you it's absolutely amazing, and people were so nice, you know, really kind of a nice place to be. So what did I learn from the Olympics? Oh God, we went from 5 people to 150 people. I learned at that point marketing, branding, communications, I learned management, and I learned that I really love to read patterns. One of the things I started to do, I was the only one to develop an actual technology platform to manage all of our work. We had so much work, and I built it from the ground up. No one told me to do this. I just decided to do it one day because it was necessary for me. And that's the main thing, is that I've really created every position I've been in. I've seen a need and I filled it out. That was kind of my path, you know. No one else told me, no one else showed me the path. I just created my own path, right? I got my topographical map and I created my own path. After the Olympics, another friend of mine, one of my bosses actually, not Mitt Romney, who was our ultimate boss at the time, but my immediate boss kind of essentially told one of the branding agency that we had hired that they needed to hire me to run their business. And that group was named Axiom. I've run their business for 7 years, and same thing, I learned on my own, essentially. I observed the leader of Axiom. I understood their business, and I started to kind of develop programs to publicize the company. And together, the owner and I decided that we were going to merge with Struck, a digital agency, and it was time to do that. So I am now the partner and the CRO at Struck, and I've been at Struck for 6 years now, and same pattern. I essentially created my own position and made my way to be so invaluable that they had to offer me partnership, because if I was going away, they were going to lose parts of their business. So what is Struck? I'll just quickly do the little spiel, because I think it's important to kind of understand how we position ourselves. We like to say that we're not the logical choice, and I'll explain why that's okay. We're a world-class agency that does not have offices in New York and London or Paris. We have offices in Salt Lake City. We're headquartered in Salt Lake City, Portland, and Culver City. Actually, Playa del Rey, we just moved. We like to help people put on the pounds. We're the digital agency of record for Jack in the Box. We also do work for McDonald's. Don't shoot me. Very fun work for millennials. We also help people take off the pounds with work for ASICS and Nike. And then we do things like this. This is the toy store at the Grand America in Salt Lake City, kind of an extraordinary soup to nut branding and retail space design. And we do stuff like this, help will.i.am, the futurist and founder of the Black Eyed Peas, create some crazy robotic from the future. I can't even explain it. But we're essentially a creative agency. We come up with great ideas, right? And we help you and our client solve their problems. So it doesn't make choice. It doesn't make sense, right? At the end, we're people. You know, we're a bunch of people, creative people, and that's who we are, right? It's like it doesn't make any sense. We defy logic. And the reason why we think it's okay is because we know scientifically that people do not make their decisions solely based on logic. In fact, the only reason you're going to make a decision today is because you have the ability to have an emotion. You recognize something emotionally. The things that we do at Struck is help our client make an emotional connection with the brand, with our client's brand. And I think that's important for you in your career development to kind of understand, yes, there are logical things, but in the end, it's that connection, that emotional connection that's going to drive me to hire you, for instance. You and I are going to have an emotional connection, and maybe I'll remember you. That's how we make decisions in the end of the day. I don't go into the science of it. So emotion is greater than logic. I have a quick reel. I don't know if I have time to play it, actually. So let's just see. Oh, wow. Oh, we don't have the sound. Oh, well. That's the glasses stuff. It's work for Nickelodeon. It's our team curling. Our CEO is obsessed with llamas, don't ask. This is our work for the state of Utah. It's a winter campaign. All right, you got to do a little self-promotion, right? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that disruption is really important. I'll talk a little bit about your own personal brand and how you also can disrupt the marketplace. I want to just kind of back up a little bit and talk about working in the 21st century, and then I'll tell you 3 things that I think are important for building your career. The reason why I want to back up a little bit is maybe it's for the older people in the room, is because I think things have really tremendously changed. How many of you know about Moore's Law? Good, because I'm going to butcher it, so that's great. Okay, Gordon E. Moore was the CEO of Intel, founder and CEO of Intel. And in the 60s, he realized that the number of transistor on the microchip board essentially were doubling every year, and that they will continue to double. And we talk about this in our field, but I think it has an impact on every single industry. And what it is the computing power is continuing to improve and double its power every year. It's kind of amazing. When I say it has an impact on every industry, everything, including commodities. This is the pacemaker, the evolution of the pacemaker. I have a pacemaker myself. I have a condition that requires that there is a pacemaker. I got mine in 2009. Look at the size of the one that I would get today, 2013. The weight of it, it's absolutely unbelievable. We're going to go into microcomputers in your bloodstream anytime now. It's going to happen. But the point really here for you guys is that it's really rapid. Like the skills you're learning today may not be the relevant skills you're going to need in 2 years. That's my experience with my own business. I put these disruptors, I don't think anybody understands what Airbnb and Uber are really doing to like age-old industries like the hospitality industry and the transportation industry. It's really fascinating to watch these changes, right? So it's a rapidly evolving environment in terms of the kind of skill set you need to understand and the impact it has on the economy. This was back in July, Microsoft, another, kind of large, kind of very interesting organization that is going to be laying off 18,000 people in our own, company at Struck. I have seen kind of the coming and going of the flash technology and then the digital technology, and then what else is next, right? And right now we're hiring user experience people. IBM hired 60,000 user experience people, but in 2 years it might be something different. So there's a lot of movement in the job market. It's a really fascinating time. So I believe that the things you do need to develop more than anything, like yes, do attend your classes, do learn skills. They are important, but there are softer skills that you really do need to kind of be prepared for. That I believe that creativity, problem solving, rapid adaptation and evolutions are really the key things for you all to learn in your life and on campus today. It'll happen anyway, but that ability to come up with new solutions to a new situation is really important. So I want to talk about that. So I believe my story is actually a story of improvisation. I love this lovely quote from Donald Rumsfeld. I don't necessarily subscribe to his politics, but this is actually studied at Harvard. What he's saying essentially is that there's the stuff we know. There's the stuff we know we don't know. And then there's the stuff we don't know we don't know. And I think that's really important. In business, I always ask myself, what is it that I don't know, right? there is so much changing that we need to kind of constantly ask ourselves, not only what we don't know and what we need to acquire, but what is it that we don't know. It's a really interesting time, right? So personally, I take comfort in other creative arts because I think that ability to navigate the unknown is actually a creative activity. And I love food, I love to cook. I'm a French woman, obviously, I love to cook. And I also love jazz. And one of the things that you learn about both of these things is that you have to kind of understand some basic things, right? It's like, you know, like Charlie Trotter says here, you have to kind of understand how ingredients work together. And then you're kind of, that's all you need. Just understand the basic things of how the ingredients work together and then have fun, like create something, do something, experiment, right? That is, I think, really an important skill, that ability to improvise. It's not what you expected I was going to say, huh, Patrick? I do talk about planning, don't worry. So the basic elements, I believe, are actually 3 steps. One is to know yourself. Now, I will talk about it, but understand who you are, what your differences are. A second one is to connect. And this is a lesson that took me forever to understand. Actually, I benefited from connection all my life, and I didn't even know it. So, you know, if I can teach you this one thing today, I think I will have done something good in my life. And then adapt. And I'll talk about these 3 steps. So step 1, know thyself. All right. So I want to talk about confidence. I think what most of you tell me when you come and after you've said, I don't know what I don't know, which is usually what you tell me. The second thing you tell me is like, how do I get confidence, right? I'm like, the confidence comes from knowing yourself. It comes from not only knowing yourself, but it comes from accepting yourself. You're not perfect. Guess what? No one else is. No one else. None of us has arrived. Mary, you and I, we know. There is so much, like, the more you accomplish, the more you know that you don't know. Like, you have never arrived, essentially. So you start where you are. Yeah? Start with where you are right now, right? It's like me in Kings Canyon. Like, you start with what you've got, you know, and do something with it. So, French thing, vive la différence. This is a story about me coming to this country, and when I moved to Los Angeles, I was really annoyed with my own French accent. I will admit it. It was kind of like I wanted people to understand me, and I would get frustrated each time people wouldn't understand me, and I worked so hard to get rid of that accent, so hard. And people, Americans were so nice, they were like, don't get rid of it, it's the best thing. And I never quite understood it. You know, I really felt it was like this weakness I had, that people couldn't understand me. And then I realized, it's like, I can't help it, right? This is who I am, right? And it's when I started to relax around it that things really started to unfold, to accept this simple thing, right? Being French, you know? And now to this day, this is a slide that my team did the other day to talk about a pitch. We did a pitch together, and they were like, it was so awesome that Pauline, you know, came in and she gave us this worldwide thing. So what I'm saying is that being different, and you are going to be different, is actually kind of an asset. You know, so I'm saying seek path that may not have a lot of people who are like you. If you're a woman, you could seek a path in technology, for instance, because there's not a lot of women in technology. There are other differences that you may have, but I think the bottom line is that you're memorable. If there's one of you in an entire room, like being a woman in a boardroom, for instance, people see you. You know, you're memorable. In a sea of sameness, you're going to have to cultivate your difference. I really strongly believe that that's been an asset for me, but it took me a lifetime of understanding that, Use what you have, you're right? Use the elements that you have with you and make the best out of it, right? There are other ways to look at differences. There's psychology. I'm very fond of kind of understanding different psychology profile. I think it's important as you become a leader to kind of understand how to move people, but I think it's important to know yourself. So I realized that I'm an introvert. You wouldn't know, by the way, I'm sitting on this thing, but what will happen for me after this presentation, I will need to have some time alone. It's important for me to know that about myself. It's okay. It's okay to be different, you know. The world doesn't belong only to extroverts, you know, the ones that have the confidence, that are born with it, that are, there are things that are really useful about knowing yourself, and I think you can optimize it. One of the things that I love to do, my favorite test that I love to do is the standout test. I recommend that you take it and you will use it in the way you interview, in the way you seek a career path. And it's a way of kind of testing your top 2 strengths and what your unique combination is. And this has kind of unlocked things for me and my team and my clients in a way that I never expected. And essentially, I found out that I was a creator and a connector, and that connecting people is one of my strengths, and I have been using it in a more conscious manner. So I think this is kind of an important thing. Okay, 2 last pieces on knowing yourself. Find your voice. This is also something that I have taken me an entire lifetime, and I hope it doesn't, but essentially know what your identity is, but also kind of find how you're going to express that identity. For me, I recommend that you look at the people who inspire you. So as a woman in business, there were not a lot of women to inspire me necessarily in business, but the women that have inspired me, these are Nina Simone, Simone de Beauvoir, and Marguerite Duras. The 2 bottom are actually writer women in France, and they wrote in the 50s and 40s and 50s in France, but they just kind of did their own thing, right? They didn't wait for somebody to tell them it's okay to be a writer, you can go and express yourself. They did it. And I think Nina Simone has an incredibly unique voice, and she really found a way to just kind of, it's one of the most exquisite voice in jazz, right? So I think you're getting my point, right? I'm like repeating myself, like find your path, accept your differences, and express them. The last piece on know thyself is follow your bliss. And by that I mean the things that interest you. For me, what interested me was just about everything. I'm very curious, apparently. I love to learn about all kinds of things. And I think it's an important skill set. I put the Leonardo da Vinci's men here because I do believe it's time for the Renaissance men and women to come back, you know, to kind of learn about literature and the arts, and that combination of science and art, I think, is where all of these exciting things are happening, technology. So if you have an interest, follow it. You know, eventually you'll have to specialize, but all of these things have helped me in my life, actually, and have enriched me and have allowed me to be really, I think, more powerful, honestly, and unique. All right, step 2, connect. So I mentioned this one took me a while to understand, and that's the introversion, because, you know, when you're an introvert, you actually have a hard time with social interaction. It's an effort for you to do that. So value your connection. Let me tell you a little story here. This woman on the right is my friend Stephanie Pite. I met her when I was 15 in high school, and I had no idea that this woman was going to change my life. Absolutely no idea, right? When I met her, I thought she was funny, and that's why we became friends. And then she introduced me to the woman on the left. And the woman on the left is the one who ended up bringing me to UCLA. If I had not known the woman on the left, I would have never actually come to this country. And I don't know what would have happened to my life, but I'm very, very happy with my life. I love being here, and I love my career, and I love what I'm doing. Then when I said someone called me and introduced me to a job in publishing, that was a friend from Paris who's a friend of the woman on the right. You don't know. You absolutely do not know who will impact your life and who will introduce you to your dream job. You have no idea. It could be your friends from high school. It could be the person sitting next to you right now. It could be me. It could be Patrick. We don't know, you know? So these are some of my own personal lessons on connecting with people and kind of valuing. I think it's important to avoid relationship arrogance. Just because someone is completely different from you or have nothing to do with the field where you want to go doesn't mean that that they don't have something to offer. be clear about what you need. This is super important. Maybe this is the only thing you should remember. You have some needs. Just formulate them. I need an internship somewhere, I would like to shadow somebody. Just kind of start, or I don't know what I need. I would love some help finding out what I need. I mean, just kind of be clear about what you need, because otherwise, these people want to help you, but if you don't know what you need, how are they going to help you, right? Ask critical questions. I talked about the power of questions. And then remember, you too can help, actually. So ask them, what do they need? Maybe you can introduce them to somebody. That's the kind of important rules of networking. And then this last idea, I actually have my own board. I think it's important to have people in your life that inspire you, that you can go to. And they can be famous people. And some famous people will help you. So look, again, to the Nina Simone, and look for the people who inspire you and who feel kind of like you're kind of interested in that, and reach out, see if they'll help you out, see if they'll be your own board, and you can kind of bounce ideas off of them. Okay, so you've made the connection. Now you've got to build a relationship, and I could go on and on about this, but relationship is based on trust. So, again, you've got to kind of deliver on your promises if you've promised something. I will skip this. Okay. Be empathetic. I want to do a little empathy test, and then I'll talk about this. Ooh, crap. Damn it. You didn't see that, did you? All right. Dan Pink wrote this amazing book that I recommend, and he's essentially saying that all of you in this room are going to be in the business of selling. It's a long, complicated story, but what he's saying is that we all spend 90% of our time essentially trying to move others. We don't know it. We hate the word sell. We don't want to be salespeople, but in the end, we're here to kind of help people or convince people to give up time and resources for you, for something that you want to do. And he says that one of the key skills you need is not only building relationship and attunement, but it's this ability to be empathetic. So the test, if you will do this with me, snap your fingers on your right-hand side. Okay, now take your finger and do this, do not think about it, draw a capital E on your forehead. He's thinking. All right, so which one did you do? The one, which one? Backwards, okay, so that others could see it, right. So it doesn't matter what you ended up doing. I'm sure you're kind of going, oh crap, am I just a really selfish person who only worries about how to write E for myself, right? But it's an important skill to learn, actually, to kind of put yourself in the shoes of the other person you're working with. This skill alone, I think, is what got me to where I got, to be honest with you, is understand what the other person, what my boss needed, what the company needed, to have empathy for my clients and for my coworkers. There's great stuff happening in neuroscience. I'm such a geek. I have to kind of move a little bit faster here through my presentation. Essentially, what we are finding out through the science of the brain is that we have this old brain that actually is looking for danger, and that we use this brain in social interaction. So, a short way of saying it is that our brain is wired for war, not love, I'm sorry to say. So read the books. I really very much enjoy all of these books on the science of the brain. But in the end, I think the most important thing in building a relationship is relate to people, not as an organization. Even though you may see, oh, I'm going to Adobe. No, you're going to go meet with the hiring manager of Adobe. He is or she is a person, a real person with their own problem. And I'll talk about some of these problems. Understand their pain point, understand their business. Everyone is short. So I'll give you a little empathy kind of trick. Everyone is short on these things, no matter what, who they are, right? Who isn't, right? So I know that's the key for you guys because you don't have necessarily professional experience, so you don't know these things, but this is basic, right? So understand if you're sending an email, they may not have time to respond. Like you're gonna have to be patient. You have to kind of find your way. And I think that's where having your unique differences expressed will help them remember who you are, right? Okay, I think we've hammered this point quite enough. Okay, last point on connecting. I think knowing how to learn how to face adversity is a key skill as well. I have met many entrepreneurs and very successful business people, and I ask them each time, how did you get to where you got to be? And they say, I failed and I got right back up. So I think that's, obviously you don't know it until you actually do it, but that ability to kind of go, okay, failed, let's start again, do something else, fail the test, like it's okay. It's the people who recover quickly who actually succeed. Like none of us have a perfect path. Like we mess up sometimes. That happens. It's true. It's very scary, but it's okay. We all live for the most part. And then the last piece about connecting is that your ability to recover will go faster depending on the relationship that you have with all the people that I just talked about. So if you fought fires together, you will recover together much faster. You're not alone, essentially. So know thyself, connect. Okay, last piece is adapt. I want to talk about planning because everything I've been saying is about improvising and soft skill and everything. And I actually think it's really important to plan. I want to talk about strategy. This book is awesome. I've learned my own strategic skills from two amazing gentlemen from the US Army, and I think any strategy actually comes from war example, unfortunately. But and what I love about their methodology is that they acknowledge the fast time piece that I was talking to you about earlier. They acknowledge that we don't have time to just plan for 90 days, and then now we're going to unfold our plan, our 5-year plan, our 10-year plan. No, they advocate that you do a short-term plan. So when I was telling you earlier, like you may not know where you're going in 10 years, but develop a plan for where you're going next year or in 2 years. And the reason why we don't want to do 10 years or 20 years is because we don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. We actually don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, but it is important to have a very clear picture of what your future is going to look like. Strategy is nothing but a plan for success. If you do not know what success looks like, how are you going to get there, right? So have a plan, have a clear picture of the future. What that does for you is that it allows you, all of these arrows are your efforts, right? The internships you're doing, the classes you're taking, the people you're meeting and everything. If you want to meet that goal, that end state, you want to have essentially these arrows more or less going in the same direction, right? It helps to get there. So it is about the future. It's not about the past. It has to be a desirable future. It's kind of the piece about dream big, right? You don't have to always believe in the story that your mom told you about how selfish you were or how stupid you were when you were a kid. You don't have to believe that story. Like the world is your oyster. You can create your own future, but you have to kind of put some effort into creating that future picture and then make a plan to get there. And then you may not get there, but at least you will have made a plan and you will have put all of your efforts towards it. But I guarantee you this methodology particularly and planning in general really helps kind of increase the chances of success. Strategy is your day job. Even if you may spend the first 10 years of your career as a tactical a person who executes, I think this practice of planning will be really important for you. All right, I want to talk about making bold decisions because I do think that has helped me. I actually saw the CEO of Evernote talk about this, and you have to make decisions all the time. And he says this is how we make decisions. We essentially look at the long list of risk and we choose the shortest list of risk instead of the way we should make decisions, which is the longest list of pros. And his his thing is like, how awesome could it be? And again, in this environment, I think, and Mary probably connects with this, as an entrepreneur, you have to make decisions every day, and you have to be bold. And as a student, I think you can afford to be bold, actually. But don't worry too much about the risk. It's important to be aware of it. But I think making these bold decisions, when I moved to the United States, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea what the risk was going to be, but it was the best thing I've ever done in my life, right? When I took the job as CEO at Axiom, I had no idea what I was going to do, but it's the best decision I made. You have to dream big. You have to make bold decisions. All right, the last piece is about communication. I am kind of a geek about this. I think it's really important that you understand this, especially students. Because I constantly have junior people in my organization kind of come to me and say, well, she didn't respond to my email. And I'm like, well, guess what? We have this multi-screen thing. I don't know if you've heard, but we're deluged with information. So you're going to have to know how to cut through the clutter. There's some really interesting science happening in communications right now in terms of how people like to communicate and process information. They're called VAK. Visual is the people who process information visually. They have to see it. K is kinesthetics, people who have to interact with the piece. These are the people who make piles of stuff everywhere, like my executive creative director has piles of stuff, my husband too. And then auditory, like the people who need to hear it before they can find that information. So if you're trying to cut through the clutter and try to communicate and move other people, which we know you will have to, this is a very useful tool, kind of understanding VAK communication. I don't have time to go into it, unfortunately. But just one more piece on communication. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. This also took me 15 years to understand because I'm such a serious person. I'm always kind of, all about the content and not understanding that my energy around what I'm saying is really the most important part of how I'm communicating. And then the last piece in adapting is actually measures of success. This is part of the strategic plan. I don't have time to go into it, but it's important that you have objective measures of success if you're working with other people, and that for yourself you understand when you have arrived, that you have a key and clear way of understanding. And data is a big, big thing in our field, but I'm trying to think about as a student, like so you've made your 2-year plan, you've made bold decision, you're great at communication, and then how do you know you got there, right? Well, you were very clear about how you were going to measure your own success. And I think that helps you in your first job too. When you sit down with your hiring manager, how will you measure success? That is a great question to ask in the interview process, by the way. All right, so this is my wrap up. I apologize, I'm going over, Patrick. Being punctual is one of my I'm a little bit of a stickler about this. So essentially, I'm sorry, but you have to be the ultimate superhero as far as I'm concerned. Superheroes turn their differences into superpowers, right? This is know thyself. Superheroes lean on other superheroes. Do you notice how many blockbuster movies are about how 5 superheroes are coming together to save the world? But this is true. This is how it works. You don't do this alone. You have to connect. And then superheroes have plans, but they know how to improvise. So I have a superhero picture with a woman in front of it, just Supergirl, I think it is. And that's my presentation.
So if I could hold on just one sec, 3 facts. First fact is that was one of the best presentations that I've seen in this auditorium, and I really appreciate that. Second fact is if you have a chance, go on and watch her TED Talk, her Salt Lake City TED Talk on collaboration. It's fantastic. And then thirdly, everything she says sounds better in French accent.
See?
No question. So thank you.
Be French. Thank you so much.
Thank you.